welcome back to the Field and Garden Podcast. It's your host, Lisa Mason Ziegler, and thanks so much for joining me here. And you know, friends, I realize that you guys have a lot of choices, and I just appreciate the support and the reviews and the sharing of our podcast and all of the resources that we offer you. And we are just really pushed to help other people join this cut flower industry as professionals, or if you're a home gardener, to learn how to grow flowers in your own backyard, because the possibilities are endless, friends. So today I wanted to share the replay of an interview I did with Gretel and Steve Adams of Sunny Meadows Flower Farm. I did this actually last year. It was a Facebook Live, so you'll realize that it's not live when you're listening to it. And to just learn more about them and their absolutely amazing business. I mean, and to listen to their story of how they started and how it's just grown over the years. And so I want to let you have a listen to that. And then I have some information after we have a listen about getting their list of favorite ranunculus varieties and their suppliers, and more. So let's have a listen to them first. We're live on Facebook. Hey, everybody. It's Lisa Mason Ziegler, and I'm bringing you tonight another great chat. I am here joined with Gretel and Steve Adams of Sunny Meadows Flower Farm in Ohio. Hey, guys.
Hey.
Bye.
Thanks for having us.
You're so welcome. So tonight is really all about me introducing these guys to anybody that hasn't met them or your paths haven't crossed. They farm in Ohio, and we've been friends for a really, really long time. They have an amazing flower farm, and we're going to chat about them and kind of how they got started and what they're doing. And then we're going to also take some questions, and because they are great at answering questions. And you know, it's that time of year, people are thinking about fall planting, and they're going to tell us about all the stuff that is going on. And if y'all are seeing me look down, I'm monitoring us on Facebook. And so if you post your questions on there, I will grab them up and bring them here to Gretel and Steve to answer them. So guys, I guess the first thing that I would like to know, because I'm not sure that I even know this about your story. So tell us, like, when you got started and kind of how it's evolved, you know, kind of give us the overview, how you started, your size, and where you are right now, and what keeps you guys busy during the day.
Yeah. Well, we always say farming kind of found us. So I was a social worker, and Steve was working at a coffee shop where he met a farmer who was a flower farmer. So that's kind of how we got our start in flowers. So we started here on the home farm. We had maybe like half an acre or something the first year. We worked for the other guy for a year, and then that's when we were going to market and found out that we really loved it. And so that's when we were like, this is what we want to do. So I had land in the family. It was not a farm, but my father purchased this land in the 80s. He passed away when I was young, so it was left to me in a trust. And so I always knew that the land was coming, but I never knew what was going to happen with it. I thought I'd rent it out to a nursery or something. I don't know. But
and so then met Steve.
Yeah. And so it all kind of fell together at the same time. You know, like the land became ours. We found out that we wanted to be farmers, and so we just like jumped all in. So started out with pigs, ducks, veggies, flowers. We had a CSA. I was canning and making soap. So like, you know, the idea was to live off of the land, kind of more like homesteady vibe. And then, we realized like in order for it to be a business, we really needed to like focus. So the flowers became our niche, and
the market kind of drove the flower sales. And so we within like 3 or 4 years moved to 100% flowers. And so that's kind of how it started.
Yeah, I mean, we were Sunny Meadows Flower Farm to begin with, so like we grew like spinach and tomatoes, and we would have pork at market, and people would be like, "Oh, you have tomatoes?" And you're like, "Yeah, I've had them like all season." So it was just like we were the sunflower kids at market was how it started. Because when we were first going to market, it was just sunflowers, zinnias, and Cosmo bunches. So we would take like 13 buckets of sunflowers and sell them all at market. So the business has definitely evolved since then. I mean, every year we've added acreage. Now here at the home farm is 10 acres. The home farm is mostly greenhouses and perennials at this point, and then we rent another plot that's about 10 minutes down the road that's 16 acres, and that's where all of our summer annuals and like
dahlias.
All the dahlias and that kind of stuff are all over at the other farm, with the idea of being like the permanent things are here on the land that we own.
So what year did you guys start?
2006.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that's 14 years. Can I do my math right? Is that right?
Yeah, 14 years.
I don't even look old enough to have been in business for 14 years. You'll appreciate that 20 years from now.
Thank you. I think when we were young, you know, it was like the farm made us grow up, you know, and our friends were still out partying. But it's like now that we're older, we're like, okay, I'm glad that the business is where it is today, that we worked, you know, that we did all that to start out with. I mean, we're still investing and the business is growing at this point. I feel like we haven't really stopped like in that way.
No.
Tell us where you guys, what is your market? Where are you guys selling your flowers each week?
Okay. We sell most of our flowers through florists and grocery stores. Those are our two biggest markets. We do some weddings, retail market, and then farmers markets. But usually this year has been different. But so no farmers markets, no farm stand this year. Mainly grocery stores and florists this year. And we
sell to florists here in town. Steve's got a delivery route once a week. We're also in Columbus, so we're close enough that florists can come and pick up that are in the city. And then we also ship flowers nationwide. So like designers can, you know, see our stuff on social media, and then we can like ship it directly to them. So that's really helped expand the market for us, especially during COVID times when we used to sell to wholesalers a lot more, and you know the wholesalers closed when the event business stopped and the shutdown happened, and haven't really picked back up yet. So having those extra florists, the shipping florist, has definitely helped.
So you guys started shipping this year, or you were already doing that last year, right? Didn't you start?
Yeah, we started
shipping for a couple, 2 or 3 years. Yeah, this is the third year, I think.
We started with like shipping around Ohio. You know, it's affordable to ship in-state ground, and it gets there next day. And so with everything that kind of happened with COVID and how things were progressing, it really worked out that we were kind of already set up. We still had a lot of learning to do, but we're pretty set up with the fundamentals of the program. So we were able to kind of move into it more rapidly.
So are you shipping nationally now, or are you still pretty much sticking in Ohio?
It's nationally at this point, yeah. And there's most orders are going FedEx, but there are some orders that are big enough that they're going like Southwest Cargo. So like our friends at Floriography in New Mexico are getting a real big order next week. So we're pretty excited about that.
It's awesome. I mean, who knew when you were growing sunflowers and cosmos, right? I mean,
right.
Yeah.
It's just so incredible. So I have so many questions. I want to ask, first off, we got a ton of people over on Facebook, and I'm sure there's questions over there, but I'm kind of looking at my list of things that I know that I wanted to ask you, because I know this is stuff that's in the back of people's minds. So first off, you guys have a lot of hoop and greenhouses, right? Give us
17. Oh. Yeah. So, and I think how many of them are heated? 7? 5,
8.
6.
8.
Yeah.
Yeah, because of prep house.
Okay.
But not greenhouse 6.
Okay.
So 7.
Seven.
Yeah,
We'll
7.
So final answer.
But yeah, so like the heated houses help so that we have flowers starting in March, and then the unheated stuff blooms kind of like, end of April, May, kind of get us into the season. And then the heated stuff, we can have flowers for Thanksgiving. That's kind of the end of the fresh flowers for us. Then we do Christmas wreaths in December, and then don't really have any flowers January, February. That's mainly when we're selling dahlia tubers at that point.
So for people like me, I can't, I've never been able to have houses because I'm in the middle of the city. Tell us what the basic difference is between a hoop house and a greenhouse.
So I think for us, all of my heated houses were hoop houses. So
to start off with.
So I'm going to complicate things even more, at least. Basically, I think the best way to think about it is a greenhouse has heat, ventilation, and a hoop house just has ventilation. So
that's not like
without
electric.
heat. No. Yeah. Well, yeah. You can still have it. Yeah. I think adding heat makes it a greenhouse. So what we did when we started was we had 3 farm tech houses that we got 13 years ago, and decided that we wanted to add heat, electric ventilation, and automated ventilation. So that's, for me, I think, I don't think it matters too much, honestly, but I think a hoop house just doesn't have heat, and greenhouse does have heat. So
okay.
Possible.
Thinking 17 houses, you guys must have a sizable crew of people that help you. Do you? I've never asked you that before.
So right now there's 18 employees. Wow. We go down to like 6 or 8 in the winter. It kind of depends on, most people are part-time during the winter, so it sort of depends on how they all like kind of piece together as to exactly how many people we have in the winter.
But we designate 3 or 4 spots for full-time in the winter, and then it's kind of first come, first serve. Yeah, seniority for
kind of who gets the rest of the hours that are
available. There's some people. There's a girl that works for us that lives by herself, and this is her only job, so we want to make sure that she needs the work, versus somebody who has a spouse that maybe has another job or can stay home and spend time with the family,
or be in school or something like that. That would take up part of their time in the winter. So, but yeah, this is the most like folks we've ever had. 4 of those people are part-time in the field, but I don't how many, like 13.
It's not the most. We had more a couple years ago. What's nice about having a couple extra employees is somebody's off they're sick, or somebody has vacation, and so those things start, in August, those things kind of start lining up, and all of a sudden one Monday you're down 2 people. So it's nice to have extra people around.
Right.
We've always kind of been a little bit more liberal with how many employees we have, because it makes our life a little easier.
Yeah.
All right. So I know this is what everybody wants to hear about. They want to hear about crops. And so I want to ask you what your favorite crops are, and then we're going to talk about what's blooming now and then what you're planting now. But I think I already know one of your favorite crops is ranunculus, because I'm going to put the link in the Facebook feed that Gretel has made up a PDF with their favorite ranunculus and where they buy them from. So you guys can request that, and I am going to put that in the feed while these guys tell us what their favorite crops are, and just kind of maybe your top 5 or something for growing in structures.
So ranunculus would be number 1, I would say. Ranunculus, lisianthus, stock,
Dusty Miller,
anemones, mums, probably top 5.
You can have mums. Yeah.
I mean, ranunculus for sure. That's why, that's basically why we keep putting up more hoop houses, is because we want to plant more ranunculus, and we've also learned through having problems with diseases that we need to rotate where the lisianthus are and the dusty. So having more greenhouse space, more space under cover, allows us to have a better rotation of where the lizzies and the dusty go, because we have had like Phytophthora and Fusarium both build up in the soil after you've planted in it for multiple years. So in the beginning there wasn't anything in there, but a lot of things can like build up because it's not getting like leached out with rainwater. So
it's hard. It's a challenge to rotation and demand, and so we're kind of always chasing both of those, rotation and demand, for those crops. So it can be a challenge.
So I have a ranunculus question that just popped up. It's from Mara, and it is, when are you guys starting your ranunculus to see blooms in March?
So we starting the ranunculus week 38. So that's next week. Next week for the heated. That's when we like soak them, and then we plant them into trays of 72, and they're usually in the greenhouse for about 4 weeks before they get planted out.
But that's for our earliest planting. You know, that's
pushing it. Yeah, sometimes it's too hot in September also. So like this first planting, we've kind of had some problems with other years, because if it's too hot, then the ranunculus will kind of like shut down. So
but those were earlier plantings too, right?
Yeah.
This one's pretty solid.
Yeah.
But there's still time, is all I was trying to say.
Yeah.
But
because also the next one I think is week 42 start, and that is also usually blooming in March.
So like 38, 42.
Yeah.
All right, so now the questions are rolling in. Ranunculus must be a hot topic.
Yeah.
So they asked, do you succession plant ranunculus? Is question one. I'll let you answer, and then I'll ask the next one.
Yes. Every 4 weeks.
Yeah, like right. I think 6 successions this year. So
do y'all know like how cute it is that before you answer your questions, you stop and look at each other? It's like you're in sync together. Y'all are amazing. You're amazing. All right. So you said 6 times 4 weeks apart?
So I think something like that. Yeah. I don't know if the dates are exactly every 4 weeks. We line it up week 52, the week between Christmas and New Year's, we always are off. So if anything would have lined up for like needing seed started or whatever that week, we always change the week to either week 51 or week 1. So that way there's like nothing planned for week 52. So sometimes the weeks are a little off, but.
And the same person asks, and how close do you plant the corms?
We plant them every 6 inches in the beds. Just about every 6 inches.
6 inches in row, and are the rows 6 inches apart also?
No,
so
yep. 6 by 6.
And so someone's asking, what winter hardiness zone are you guys?
We're 6A. We're on the edge of 5B, 6A.
So
we experience both.
Yeah. So like the unheated ranunculus typically starts blooming in April for us. And then we don't starting that until like kind of later in the year. I think week 46 is the first time that we start the unheated stuff.
And we do plant, with that succession planting, we do half heated plantings, half unheated plantings to kind of make it a
even more of a succession.
Yeah,
that's great. So Ashley asks, do you use white fabric for ranunculus to keep it cool? And I would think that she's asking about white landscape fabric.
Yeah, or plastic. No, we have, I think that would only be an issue if you're planting the corms early in September, or you're trying to have blooms later in June, July. So a couple years in a row, we tried to plant pretty early in September, even end of August. And what we did was we had a cover crop down at buckwheat, mowed that down, planted ranunculus, and put straw over top to kind of keep it cool.
But that didn't work.
No, it worked, but then we had powdery mildew. So
Yeah.
it's just out of control. So
I agree with Gretel. It didn't work then, right?
she was pretty harsh on cutting that this year.
Yeah. Yeah. It carried over the powdery mildew that we had from in the fall into the spring, because then the spores were in the greenhouse like through the whole winter. So we decided it wasn't worth it.
Okay, so the other question is, what temperatures are you keeping the houses at in the winter to get those March blooms?
I don't think the temperature matters too much as far as bloom time. I mean, maybe a week or two, it changes. I think you can grow the houses at 34 degrees and have blooms mid-March into March, or you can grow at 50 degrees and have them at the beginning of March or something like that. So I don't think that matters. And we'll go into this a lot more, but for me, I'm trying to control humidity in the greenhouses more than I'm trying to control bloom times. And so, the lower the temperature in that house, the higher the humidity goes. So we grow at 50, 55 to try and really battle the humidity. But we've also had great success growing at 34. But you start to see disease issues at that point. So
especially we're just so cloudy here in Ohio that there's not enough sunshine to evaporate the moisture in the greenhouse.
It doesn't heat up enough during the day because we have no sun in winter.
So I think now would be just a really great time. I don't know if everybody knows this. I mean, we've been talking about it, but Steve and Gretel are actually doing an online school with us this winter. It's called long, y'all. They all long because they have to be descriptive. Flower Farming School Online, growing cut flower crops in hoop and greenhouses, right? Isn't that what it is? So it'll be a 6-week course of these two. Just, what are you going to cover, Steve? Just tell us in a nutshell what people can get an idea. Or I'm going to post that to a link to your page.
I mean, we're going to talk about, anything from figuring out what kind of structure you want to what kind of structures we use to just the different styles of structures, location, growing, prepping beds, preparing the soil.
Specific crops that we grow in different times of season. Also talking about planning for the holidays and that crop rotation that we were talking about. And then a lot of greenhouse management stuff. So some of the stuff that we kind of touched on here, he's talking about humidity control, venting, netting, cover crops.
Talk about the pest issues that people run into.
Yeah, definitely. So in that greenhouse management, pest, disease, and soil management, and all of the issues that we've seen. We work with OSU pretty closely in the plant pathology lab, and so they've been out here a lot. And so
over the last 2-3 years, we've really had to dive into pest control, disease control. When we first started, we didn't have that much of an issue with it. But after a while, it just kind of builds up in a greenhouse structure. So
when you first start, the bugs don't know that you're there, I think.
Yeah. So I think there'll be a lot of information about pest control, disease control. That's something I've been spending a lot of time on this summer, definitely.
I think that's I've seen and heard from a lot of farmers that, get their feet wet in flower farming, and, how you find your niche and all of a sudden you can sell everything you're growing. Well, they go out and buy a structure and everything seems rosy, like what you're kind of saying for the first year or two. Mm-hmm. But then disease and pest issues, because first off, they really didn't even know what to do to prevent that stuff, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that is a really great key point. So I just put a link in the feed and that to their class, which will tell you more about it. Their registration is only open, y'all, 5 days in November 16th to 21st, and you'll be hearing more from us about that. And when you request the PDF, that's going to put you on Steve and Gretel's list, and that means you'll get notified about any additional free resources they're giving out, and also when their course opens. We won't let you miss their registration time. And it's a 6-week course, and it starts in January, so it's like the perfect time of the year. So there's other questions on here. I saw a really good one about Dusty Miller. And I know what the other one I saw was, do you guys overwinter dahlias in your houses? Do y'all grow dahlias inside?
We do grow dahlias inside, and it's challenged. This year I feel like it's been by far the best luck we've had. But no, we don't overwinter them. We don't overwinter anything in our greenhouses. And so that's because if I lose 10 or 15, 20% of a crop in a greenhouse, I'd rather refill that with the same crop, right? I'd rather have 100% of dahlias replanted in the spring. We just haven't had, unless I can get 100% regrowth, we're not going to overwinter it just because it's such valuable space. And that's kind of how we look at it. I manage all the greenhouses, but like I spend most of my time managing the greenhouses or prepping beds like in the field. That's kind of my role. So,
but even delphiniums this year we cut out because we used to fall plant for spring bloom, but like so many would die in that amount of time, and then we just decided that they weren't worth, and they're spaced so far apart like anyways that we just decided it wasn't worth the space. So so we do enterprise budgets every winter especially the greenhouse crops to figure out what's the most like profit per square foot. So that's how things get cut out, like the delphiniums.
I can remember the first time I heard y'all talk about the enterprise budget and that you guys did what book is it? Isn't there a book that's based on, what's the name of that book for folks?
Richard Wiswall's book, The Organic Farmer's Business Handbook. And then he also works with NOFA. And so they have like a whole sheet that you can use. So it's been updated.
More updated.
Yeah, it's been updated since the book was written. So
it's kind of surprising sometimes, isn't it, over the crops that you think are such a hot item, then all of a sudden when you run the numbers and figure things out, maybe they aren't so hot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's also why we plant like snaps and stock so densely in the greenhouses, was because when we ran the numbers, like if it's 1 per hole, then that's, only half as much money if you can put 2 plants per hole or 3 plants per hole. So
are you talking about 6x6 net holes?
Yeah. So we use the
Hortonova.
Yeah, netting when we plant most of the time.
In the greenhouse. Yeah.
So there's a couple of your customers on here. Donna says your flowers are beautiful and packaging is fantastic. I ordered from you a few weeks ago in May to support another flower farmer while I was without blooms. And then the very next person says, I bought your flowers to sell in West Virginia and loved them. So that's really nice. I'm looking
thanks for letting us know. Yeah.
We've actually found that a lot of our customers that we ship to are growers who have events or weddings on times where they don't necessarily have products. So it's kind of been a little niche market that we've been able to do with the shipping.
Yeah, and it's always fun to see the other flower farmers appreciate, the weird stuff too. So I think that's what's fun for us is seeing their designs with it, because we know that they know how much work goes into it.
For sure. And our friend is on here, Janice Harris, but she has a question.
Okay.
She asks, how minimally can I heat a house to be able to overwinter ranunculus?
I would say, I mean,
I don't know what zone you are, Janice, but here we plant it in October and it blooms in April in an unheated house. So I don't know if you need to heat it to get it to live through the winter.
I'm thinking she's the same as you, actually.
yeah, I don't think she's that far off, and I'm sure she'll say, but I think, you know, I mean, keeping anything above freezing, right above freezing, if you want to add heat to kind of extend it, but.
So this is a question I'm interested in here, and of course I don't have a house, but I try to do this outside. Do you ever overwinter Lysianthus in an unheated hoop house?
So again, we just don't. That's one of the crops that we were tempted by overwintering first was Lizzie's, but no, we just plant new Lizzie's every year. Doesn't mean you can't.
You can, however, I will tell you that I have tried it probably 3 or 4 times. In the end of the season, the plants are honking big and they look so awesome, and I think, okay, this is the year. I'm gonna overwinter them. We hoop and cover them, and they just slowly die off one at a time. Then come May, you have this holy bed that you can't use for anything else, and I can't imagine giving greenhouse space to them. Don't you think that's part of the lesson that you learn I think that's part of the wisdom that learning from experienced flower farmers, to hear somebody say, I know those plants look great in October, but trust us, they are going to not fill the bed next year. And when you're trying to do a business, it changes everything. I'm constantly saying that because, I mean, in my students, we have a lot of people making that transition from going from being a gardener to getting started as a market farmer, as well as people that have been farming for several years that are just ready to finally get down to business, Mm-hmm. It's just because you're thinking, oh my gosh, that's a nice plant, I'm going to throw it away. Yeah.
We planted some cabbage in a hoopty recently, and some of the last ends of the beds weren't planted that well, and we had a lot of loss, and it was kind of a decision, what do I do with this bed now that is half good, half not good? I can't replant it with cabbage. It's going to be 6 weeks behind it. And so that's with the Lizzies, that's something I don't want to be challenged with in the spring. There's 50% of the blooms are there and it looks great, but the other 50's gone and it's not worth it. It's like this challenge. But we did try and overwinter eucalyptus last year in an unheated house with very minimal success. But again, all these things can be done, but for us, it doesn't live up to our standards of having a full bed. It doesn't mean it can't happen,
Right.
But.
So Josie is asking, how long do you keep Dusty Miller in the high tunnel before you pull it out? Do you replant it somewhere else or toss it? I think I know the answer to question number 2, but I'll let you.
We do plant multiple successions of it. So we plant some heated early, so that way we have it for Mother's Day and Easter sales.
We plant a lot early, right?
Yeah, and then we plant some unheated, so that way we can kind of move along. So we can leave it in for the side shoots to, we cut it pretty hard.
We cut it down.
Yeah. And so we can leave it in for side shoots, and then sometimes we get regrowth, but other times in the spring, we have a pretty quick need for those beds. So there's after Mother's Day, there's a huge, all the greenhouses get ripped out and replanted for summer just because we plant so many Lizzies and stuff. So we plant Dusty multiple times, so that we don't have to hold on to. I feel if you cut off of it too much, they kind of get scraggly, It's not that nice
And I would say in the
leafy stem. Sorry.
No, you're fine. I'm sorry. In the spring, it's in and out, in and out, in and out. Cut it down, get it out of there. But towards the end of fall, summer, late summer, fall, thinking about Christmas, and not necessarily needing those beds for a few months. Maybe we'll cut it back, harvest it, and get regrowth and see what happens for Christmas. The more Dusty Miller we can have at Christmas, it seems like the better.
Yeah, but we also have Phytophthora issues. So it's like if a bed is really bad, then it definitely gets ripped out right away. Like we get what we can get out of it, and then so it depends on how much meltdown there is.
All right.
That helps, Josie.
Yeah.
So I think that you should explain this. Sandy says, I love that you speak in weeks, not parts of the season or a month. And it's so interesting. I think it depends on how you learn from the beginning, because I'm not a week talker. So I think there's a lot of people that don't know what that is. So why don't you explain that while I'm trying to find any other questions that are on here?
Okay. So everything we do by week number, and the reason for that is because when we do our crop planning, everything is transferable to the next year. So if we know that we started snaps on week 36, then that's something that can go to the next year's greenhouse schedule and is a lot easier. So, and it also helps, like, we used to write the date on the tags, and then we would be like, well, what week was that? So now we only write like the week number on the greenhouse tag. So everything is by week number, the greenhouse week, the transplant week, the rip out week, the bloom week, like everything in our recording is by that week number.
Mother's Day, Easter, we know all those week numbers,
which every year the Easter is different, and that's gotten us a couple times when we're planning for Easter, is like not accounting for Easter being 2 or 3 weeks earlier than it was last year. Sorry, our dog's chewing on a power cord, so.
You shocked?
So explain what the weeks are, though. You know what I mean? So did you say that? Did you explain that?
So like week 1, also if you order from Glockner, they send you this like week number like planning thing. And you can also, if you have an iPhone, turn on the week numbers in your calendar settings. So like week 1, is the first week of January. So there's 52 weeks of the year. So like when we're talking about, like for us, frost-free date is typically around Mother's Day outside. So that's like week 19. So, week 19 is like when some of the like big outdoor plantings start going in. So, yeah. And then also on this thing from Glockner, they have like highlighted the flower holidays too. So that way you can see when Easter is this year and when Easter will be next year and that kind of stuff.
So I have questions. Amy asks, is your course for beginners or experienced growers?
I think it's going to be more beginners and medium experienced growers. It's definitely going to be a lot of introductory stuff as far as greenhouse stuff goes.
But we are going to get into a lot of detail about crops, talking about specific weeks, and then especially with like the greenhouse management stuff, is like all, especially if you're just planting in a hoop and you don't have a heated space yet. Like I feel like it's going to be like a mix of stuff for experienced folks or people who are looking for more experience in those categories, and then also people who are looking to like, what kind of structure would I even want to like start with? So
and beginners who want to learn quickly through our experience is what it'll be.
So Sherry asks, will you dumb it down for those of us newbies? So people are they're so afraid, I think, sometimes that it might be beyond them. But I know with your teaching style that it won't need to be dumbed down because of your teaching style. But the other thing that everybody needs to know is, in addition to the class you get, it's a 6-week class. Each week, a whole bunch of new sessions land in your library. But then at the end of that week, you get a time with Gretel and Steve for the question and answer. So anything that you don't understand or you don't quite get, you can ask, as well as we provide a closed Facebook group that is just students and these guys. So you can kind of like, they'll stay in touch with you in there. And so you'll be able to get the message.
And you'll have access to it, right? Forever. You'll have access to it forever, like once they buy it. So if it's something that you don't understand now, but maybe you get more experience and, you know, you want to come back to, then you'll have the opportunity to do that as well.
We hear that over and over again. So it's just so interesting how, you know, you're in a place in your business or starting and you watch whatever course, you know, you're doing, and there's a lot of great stuff, but you're only really focusing on this part. But guess what? In 6 months, all of a sudden you're like ready to do, hey, they talked about that other thing. Let me go back and watch that. We're hearing that over and over again. So yes, you have lifetime access. And let's just say after this year, if these guys decide they want to add some bonus sessions, something that people just didn't quite get, they got a lot of questions, so they're thinking they needed to add to their course, that will be added to the course, and even people from the previous years get access to that. So your course grows even after you've had it. I see Janice Harris is already hitting her mother up for a Christmas gift of a course.
Nice. Great idea.
Okay, so Jenny Lee asks, what are your top 5 not worth it crops? The ones that don't produce enough to make it profitable, or as profitable as the top 5, such as ranunculus? That's kind of a trick question.
No, that's a great question, and it's hard to think about because what are the 5 we don't grow? And it might not be in any order, and we might have 6 or 7. But I'll say bachelor's button.
You mean this is in general, not just in hoops, though?
Yeah, is this hoop specific? We don't have time to find out, do we? Let's just say.
I think it's just in general.
Okay. Nicotiana, I would say, is one of the outdoor ones that we've cut.
Bachelor's button, kind of, we cut.
But I think we might be adding it back in. But Matricaria.
And Matricaria and bachelor's button, both because of thrip issues that we've had. And so if we can get better at managing the thrips, then we can bring them back into the rotation. Crocosmia was one that we used to do a lot of that we don't do anymore just because of space, not anything.
Oh, I got a good one. The hairy balls, the Oscar, we cut that out. We had an employee had to go to the emergency room from getting like latex in her eye. So. And
euphorbia.
Yeah, same reason. Euphorbia, just don't want to deal with it. Summer snaps we don't grow outside because they're just not as good as the outdoor ones. We don't grow basil as a cut anymore just because our florists don't like that it doesn't it can't go in the cooler and stuff.
The question should be what is on the chopping block that we're thinking about getting rid of. And
I don't want to start a fight or anything, but
yeah, that's where my list goes. That's where. Here's a few.
Yeah. Hey, delphiniums, though.
Delphiniums in the greenhouse.
We'll give you that. Yeah. Every year we look at those sales.
Godesia, we quick grown Godesia. Again, because a lot of these were thrip issues, like bugs. So for us, when
poppies, it comes like the later poppies.
So for us, what it comes down to is labor. It's labor, production, and then pests and disease. And so for us, the most profitable crops can be things that are direct seeded, that don't have to be weeded, you know what I mean? That have less labor. But sunflowers and then so you'd have sunflowers, cosmos, amaranth. And then you got your crops that are really productive, ranunculus, lisianthus, valuable, productive anemones.
Dahlias that are a lot of work, but they give you multiple stems. Yeah.
And what was the third? And then pests and disease. So then we got rid of Godesia, bachelor's button,
Matricaria, all that stuff. Yeah. So each year something gets cut. Like we look at our sales reports and we determine like what did we sell the least of that we can like cut from production. Because we're also usually adding stuff too. So it's like the repertoire changes.
And just because it doesn't work for us, we see it all over Instagram where it works for other people, and then we talk about how we're going to try it again. And sometimes we do, sometimes we don't.
So Peg asks, what's the best way to start? I want to start slow. Hoop, tunnel versus greenhouse.
I would say an unheated high tunnel. I would say would be a good place to start. I mean, that's where we started.
And then you can always add heat to it, like that's what we did. But I would also kind of say, start with the end goal. Start with the greenhouse.
I mean, we had no idea when we started that it would be the size of the farm that it is. Like, we didn't have a business plan or like big goals that, saw us getting to this point. So it's like we've already, far exceeded the like expansion. I mean, we always talk about the greenhouses. Like we probably would have resituated in a different way had we known that we were going to put up so many, because right now they're kind of like they're end to end in the wrong way. Like it'd be nice to just have a road and have all of the doors like on one side.
We're talking about that. So when we started, we were in our third year, and a buddy that we were kind of grower friends with locally decided to buy 2 hoop houses from Farm Tech, 30 by 96 foot houses, and we were going to put lilies in the ground and then put a ton of mulch on top of them to have Oriental lilies all come on at one time in July because we thought it was a good idea. So that's how we started growing in a tunnel, and then it wasn't until 2 years later we were trying to dig every single lily out of there. It was a pain to buy. It didn't work. It was a disaster.
The mulch took like 3 years to break down, so we tried to grow salad greens in there afterwards, and the mulch like sucked all the like nitrogen out of them. So
all that being said is we had no idea what we were 21 and 24, so 23 and 26 when we 23 I don't know, young when we started with the houses with no idea. Neither of us went to school for this. We didn't really have any partners that went to school for this. We were just young and somewhat naive, very naive, and
went for it.
And so all the learning we've done has just been self-taught or like us going out and finding answers.
Learning from other growers has been a really important part of how we have grown our business, and so that's why it's so important for us to like give it back to other people.
So some Peg asks, do you grow anything outside of your hoop and greenhouses? So tell us how large is your production area outside of your houses?
So you've got the other plot is 16 acres. We've probably got
20 acres of tillable and a few acres of perennials.
Oh my.
Some of that over in the 16 acres, we do like try to cover crop or rest a field here and there. But the problem is we keep growing more, and then that's then there's not as much time or room to cover crop like we want to. So
cover crop gets squeezed. So here's a question from Janet. How do you do tractor work in the hoop house? She just bought 2 and can't figure out how to plow in them.
It's a good question. So I seldom use a tractor in the greenhouses. I will say that I am trying to find a good compact tractor that I can use in the greenhouses, but I seldom do greenhouse. It's all handwork for the most part. And so I'll tell you what we do now, and then kind of what you can do if you can get a tractor into it. But now we bought a broad fork from Johnny's, and so it is basically 14, 16-inch tines on a big giant fork that you push in the ground, you step on and wiggle, and you pull it back just a little bit to break up that hard pan. And then we either rototill with the walk behind rototiller, or we don't.
But the initial site prep, you definitely till it with the tractor before we put the greenhouse there. So it's like breaking that sod, turning it into a field.
So I was going to get into it.
Okay, sorry.
So it's all handwork in the greenhouse for the most part now for us. Rod forking, breaking up the hard pan, tilling, fluffing up the soil.
So we have a walk behind tiller.
And so, but if you can get into one end of the greenhouse, what I've done in the past, because I'm kind of running into some compaction issues, so I'm trying to chisel and break up that hard pan a little deeper in my greenhouses. You enter into the greenhouse forward, and you till basically from right to left or left to right, going as far as you can down to that end, and then you back up. And so you're not necessarily working the soil the last 20 feet of that house, but you're working it, the other 60 feet or whatever. And so you go in and you go straight forward, and you till, and you move over, and you till, and you move over, and you till, and then you go out of the house and you back up, you back into the house so that you can kind of till and kind of go out the door. It's complicated, but maybe I can address that in the class a little bit,
Yeah, that would definitely be something. Well, I can see that would be definitely a challenge of the best case. And so here's somebody asking, if you started your structures over again, would you look into movable structures to help manage disease, or is it worth it to use a permanent house and just deal with the disease?
I think that the movable houses make a lot of sense. I don't know, we've never really considered, our idea has just been to add more permanent houses. I think the movable houses make sense, but I also, you have to be done with a crop or done with all, it has to be a good timing, and timing is always kind of difficult when you're dealing with ranunculus and lizzies and stuff, but I think it would work really well.
I think when we went to the chef's garden and they had movable houses, and what they were doing was using them for spinach, and kind of like the spinach was dormant and they were putting a movable house over it for a few weeks, and then they were able to cut from that, and then they were able to move it. But for us, it needs to be undercover for so long, for it to bloom, that I think it might be harder to try to use a movable house in a way to get multiple successions.
But I think there's a major benefit to having a movable house. It's any elements for either a third of the year or half the year. It's getting rained on, snowed on. So I think there's a lot of advantages to it.
But it would be hard to automate anything. If you're going to hook up heat or electric or anything like that, I don't think you'd be able to have it be movable, right?
You can have a heater, but it'd have to be one heater. So it'd be in the front for one half and in the back. And so the way we do our heater.
All right.
I think it's great. I would try it, but we just haven't.
So we're kind of coming to the top of the hour, and so I want to ask this question. I'll see how much time we have left. Emma asks, what would your number one tip for getting into greenhouse and hoop house growing?
Over ventilate. Keep it open as much as you can. Airflow. You don't want it to be tight. We found that ventilating in the winter is as important as opening up the sides when it's 90 degrees outside. When it's cold, it needs ventilated. When it's hot, it needs ventilated. So it's a lot of work, and that's the most labor-intensive part of the greenhouse programs is ventilation, right?
Yeah.
You probably have something different.
I would just say get started doing it, because it's going to be learning by doing. Like, no matter what, you can learn from others or from books. It's like your climate, your soil, your conditions, you know, are going to determine like what you need to do, your soil test, that kind of stuff. So like the earlier you get started, the more time you have in your farming lifetime to figure it out.
All right. So I have posted, and I will go back in and post the link to their PDF at the top of this feed, so it'll be easy for everybody to see it. When you get their ranunculus favorites list and their suppliers, that puts you on Gretel and Steve's email list for their course, which means any other great PDFs or anything that they generate to give you guys, you'll automatically get it, and we'll also keep you up to date when registration comes. So be sure and check that out. And I'm just looking. Our stick man is here, Carl.
Hey.
Carl.
So this is a good question, which I really don't know that you can really answer. How much do you think would be the very minimal investment starting out? And I think they're talking about with a house is what I would guess. It's
a minimal investment for a heated structure. I mean, Carl knows the answer to this question, because look at his production facility.
No, I would say unheated structure where we like farm tech. So what we did.
The Amish, probably.
Yeah, or the Amish. But what we did is the farm tech was offering like 0% financing for 3 years or 5 years or something like that. And so that's what we did to like get started. And I feel like an unheated one is what, maybe 3,000 to 5,000? No, more than that.
Yeah, I would say unheated. I mean, you gotta look at plastic and stuff.
Yeah.
So $6,000 to $8,000 unheated, depending on size. But we do our unheated houses are 144 by 20, so it's about the same square footage as a 30 by 96. So, and then $15,000 for heat, electric, water, and that's running utilities. That's the extra plastic, the heaters. The heaters really are pretty affordable. I mean, the heaters are $700, you know.
Right. So I think, if Gretel and Steve might scroll back through your questions, and if there's something on here that they can answer for you, they will. And, we just encourage you guys to get on their list so you can get some more information. And we're really excited about the class. We knew that adding Dave Dowling's class, which is all about bulbs, perennials, and woodies, and a smidgen about structures, really whetted a lot of people's appetites for growing in structures. So we knew that that's the next step for people. I mean, you can really extend your season, right, at both ends of, and I mean, there's just so many. I mean, a lot of stuff was running through my mind when y'all were talking about just a lot of options, and especially in this time. I mean, there are times that I wished I had hoop houses just to keep the rain off my flowers when we have just unending rain. There's just so many benefits. And I look forward to y'all's class to, even though I can't have a house, to learn about so much of it's because it's really a whole different cup of tea, right, than growing out in the field. And I think that's when people get sucked in, get a house, and they're like not using them now because they can't master it. And I'm looking forward to you guys' class. So, gang, we're going to sign off here. And so this will be on the Facebook feed or on our Facebook page here in the Gardener's Workshop. And you can, we appreciate if you like and share this. That's what helps us the most. That makes more people be able to see it. So please share it with groups that you think might benefit from this. And hey, let them meet Steve and Gretel and see what all's going on. So thank you guys for being here with us tonight.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
And thank you for putting together that PDF with the knowing which ones you guys like to grow, and then where you buy them from is like huge. That is such a help to so many people. So I know a ton of people have already requested it. So
yeah, cool.
All right. So until we meet again, gang, well, I'll see you next time.
All right. Bye.
Thank you.
All right, friends. How about it? I mean, the possibilities are just endless, right? I mean, we're all still learning. I just love the way that Steve and Gretel talk about how they don't do that, but maybe that is a good idea. You know, they're such an innovative couple. And the years since we've done this interview, their farm has grown even more. I can't wait to bring that to you in another episode. But first, so Gretel did prepare a PDF list of her favorite ranunculus varieties and where you can buy them, where growers can get those. So that is right down below the podcast in the show notes. So you can request that PDF. Doing that will also put you on Steve and Gretel's special email list. That means any new information or resources they create, you'll automatically receive it, as well as we'll give you a little tap when their online course enrollment opens up. So their course is actually a part of the Flower Farm and School online series, and their course is called Growing Cut Flowers in Hoop and Greenhouses. And y'all, it is slam packed full of information. So their enrollment typically happens in mid-November, and then the course runs like it starts in January. It is a 6-week course, so it is delivered a little bit each week, several hours of content each week for 6 weeks. It includes a live Q&A coaching session with Gretel and Steve during the school time that is also recorded and added to your library. And you also get all the previous Q&As that they've had with their students. So friends, I just encourage you to go to thegardenersworkshop.com and go to Steve and Gretel's course page and just investigate it. Watch their video and just learn more about the course. You know, we only open up our course enrollments once a year for a short period of time because we are so interactive during school with our students. But our interaction doesn't stop there, friends. Even after school is out, if you select to join our optional closed alumni Facebook groups for your course, you are in with your classmates, you're in with your instructor dropping in and out, still answering your questions. And I just can't, we have just built it around what I felt like I needed to do better, quicker, faster. And that is the bottom line to getting into business and going after it, right? So, friends, jump on over to thegardenersworkshop.com. Lots of free resources over there. Lots of other online courses as well. On demand, meaning you can buy them year round. Other school courses. And we're just here to help you here on the podcast and on the Learning Center. So, folks, until we meet again, ciao.